Hello again all, it's totally amazing. Thank you very much again for joining me. I hope that you're all still doing very well. Right, in this video today, I've got something that I need to share with you because I've been speaking to a few people about this and it's evident that a couple of people have these. And we're going to take a look at why, if you have one, you need to get rid of it immediately. First of all, we have our delivery today from Amazon, and they've actually stuck the label on upside down, which gives us the sad face, but that's okay. Let's have a look and see what we've got. These suspicious things. Some of you would have heard me banging on about these just today. What these are these voltage testers, and this is why I'm making this video, because I'm going to show you the ways that you can indeed die from this. All right. Before we get to that, let's have a quick look at the correct way to do things. We'll take some readings of our power supply, or in this case of our power outlet. We'll write the values there, our voltage on. Then we can go ahead and use one of these to throw into some water, which I've got, some soapy water. Let that soak for a while, and then we can take a resistance reading of it and then calculate what sort of current we would get from that. Right? Because a lot of people are going to say, well, it's not the voltage that kills you, it's the current. And others will say, well, it's not the current, it's the voltage. First of all, that's a dangerous misconception because it requires voltage and current, which is overall power, which is relevant, okay? That's the fact of it. It's voltage and current that will determine how much hurting that you do and just what your resistance is in reference to that. Because it's going to come down to overall resistance of you and to what level you're referenced to ground. All of these things will determine how much hurt or dying you do. Right, let's get to it. So the correct way to go about this, if you wanted to find out whether or not this was indeed energized or not, instead of using something like this, you can get a battery version of it with a green light. It's not foolproof, but it's the first step that you would do. Right, that green light you can see when you bring it here goes orange. Not foolproof, but it's better than using those. Right. It's a live line indicator. You're not using it to prove dead, you're only using it to say, oh right, okay, that's potentially live. Excellent. Right. Again, these are not foolproof because you can rub them against yourself and you can see it's going red. Right, it sort of works there, like it's sort of like that, but yeah, sort of not really. Okay, fine. But we can move on a little bit and we'll use something professional. Our Fluke T90. Right, these are double pole testers, and there's a couple of interesting features about this. And it's rated for 690 volts as well. Feel a lot better about using this because it's substantial, it's very well insulated, and more importantly, not only does it have a rubber cap there to open an earth shutter, but the prongs here as well are also sleeved properly, which you can remove, and we'll have to in this case. But interestingly enough, you can pull these apart because they join together. But with this, when they're joined together, they actually perfectly fit inside that shutter mechanism. So for Europe and the UK, and I suspect probably elsewhere in the world, it's the same. And you've got continuity over there as well. So by touching these two together, you can see that it'll do continuity. Right. Let's test our supply. Now normally, what you would also do just before we do, is you would have a proving unit. We're going to look at that in another video, waffle. As I said, because of the way that the shutters are on this and how recessed they are, I'm going to have to remove those sleevings. Normally you wouldn't, but for purposes of this, we'll have to. Let's just sort of unscrew that, like so, and they just simply pull off then. Right, so let's indeed see if we have an energised supply. Well, there's definitely an AC on there. We'll get in. As you can see, 230 AC. Let's have that out. We'll need to leave the shutters open on that just temporarily, because now we're going to go ahead and use another method that we can do with regards to a multimeter. Let's just put our probe caps back on, and we can set those off to one side. We're still going to leave that open there. Multimeter is another way that you can do this too. So what we'll do is just set that to voltage alternating. Turn the backlight on so you can see this. Move the camera slightly. Again, we'll have to remove these sleeve coverings off of here just to give us a little bit more exposure, because exposure is good. Neutral and line. And there we are. What are we, about 237, 238, 237. Let's call it 237 volts. Turn that off and remove it. Right, so we have our first figures in then. 337 volts alternating. Good. Good. Right, that's the correct way that you can test it. Let's just have a bit of that out of that. Now we can come to our offending items. Let's unbox it, and then we'll go from there. Let's just get this out of the way. We'll need this back in here, because we'll need that soon. I'll just set that off to one side. Don't need this now. So let's have that out, and now let's talk about the very dangerous things that we have here. Let's just open this. Yes, well, that's these stupid screwdriver things. Yes, you would have seen these. Basically, the whole idea is this. You would be earthed or referenced ground, and unbelievably, what happens here is when you have this stuck in there, like that, you would have current, or supply. Let's see if we can balance this in there, like so. Probably not, that's not going to work. Alright, fine, whatever. Well, that's still not going to. Fine. I might have to hold this kind of like that. Fine. So what happens is your voltage, or your current, your voltage current, comes up here through this metal blade, up through the shaft, into the handle. And in that handle, you've got some sort of plug in there, which contains a resistor and a neon. Then unbelievably, from that neon through that resistor. It goes up through to a spring, out through the cap, and unbelievably into your finger. That's interesting because the neon in there is a neon bulb. Now, normally neon bulbs are great resistors. However, when they get up above 50 volts, so 50 to 75 volts, they'll pass current really well. And basically then what happens is the electricity will flow through that quite easily. So it only comes down to one single resistor that prevents you from getting a shock from that. Unbelievable, isn't it? And it requires you to be earthed. Unbelievable. Even says so on the back of the packages. Look, says it. NB. Indication is affected by lighting conditions and how well earthed the user and or the electrical circuit is. Unbelievable. So it requires you to be referenced to ground, completing a circuit essentially. So it only comes down to one single component in there that will stop you from dying. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this offending thing and I'm going to throw that into some water that I've got. Okay. So let's do that now. Got a box of water. This simulates a bowl of dishwater. You'd be inclined, let's just say then, that was set on the side, right, and you do some washing up, or you were working on something electrical, and then all of a sudden that's fallen in a bowl of water like that. We're going to leave that there to soak for a while to simulate that has fallen in a sink. Meanwhile, the phone has rang, right, and now you've got to answer the phone. So, to simulate the phone call, this is where this video is being made. So we're going to let that sit there for the time being. It's right there. Completely was unopened before, and now we're going to see exactly how it kills you. Let me pause while I get bored. Welcome back. So we're still here. Right. For those of you, as I said, that say it's not the voltage that kills you, it's the current. Well, actually, no, as we've already said. It's not the current, it's the voltage, as some will say. Well, it's both. Simple Ohm's law tells us this. Voltage equals current divide resistance. Current equals V divide R. Let's just say that 220 volt, right, and you divide it by, in this case, 1000 ohms, gives you 0.22 amps, or 220 milliamp, I do believe. Right. To get your power, because it's overall power as well, that is relevant in this. Right, so it's like when Andy over at Photonic, he said that it's voltage and current that equals overall power. And that power is not what you want to come in contact with. It's exactly right. Because power, this is your watts, equals your voltage times your current. With the example, 220 volt times 0.22 amp gives you 48.4 watts. Okay. We'll come over to this in a minute. Let's move on down. So 220 volt AC at 10 ohms gives you 22 amps. 220 volts AC at 100 ohms gives you 2.2 amps. 220 volts AC at 2 k ohms or 2000 gives you 0.22 amps or 220 milliamps. And 220 volts AC at 2000 ohms or 2 k ohms gives you 0.11 amps or around 110 milliamps. In the simple circuit diagram, this basically shows you what's going on with this. You have an AC input. Right. Obviously this is where your current is across that copper wire. Well, the resistance in a copper wire is going to be practically nothing in your household circuit, right, in your household wiring, because that's made of copper. Right? But it all now comes down to the load. Right? This is where your resistance is, and ultimately, the higher the resistance in here means the less current flowing into you. But you still have to be referenced to ground to complete the circuit. Follow me? Right. Well, if one of these got wet, then the resistance of that drops, meaning more current flow into you, which means sadness, as you see. So by touching that onto live, you complete that circuit. Now, interestingly enough, if you happen to be in contact with ground for any reason, you're dead. It's bottom line. Right here, that is conceivable that could happen, because that's metal. So imagine if I was to reach over, put that in there, and then touch something that was grounded. Well, what happens then is that current goes across my chest, across my heart, and hope to die. Right? So you're going to pass that current over your chest. It's the same thing as if you used the left hand and you passed it down your leg. Like somehow your feet were wet or something like that. Right? You've then dumped all that energy, all that energized supply, straight across your heart. You've died. We'll look at how that actually kills you in a moment. Here's where things, though, do get interesting. Right. Okay. Here's where things get interesting. At 0.001 amp, that's the threshold of sensation, so you don't really tend to feel that. That's where you start to feel it, rather. 0.01 is anywhere from mild sensation now to a painful shock. Then gradually, as the current increases, the problems increase. So then you'll get muscular and intramuscular paralysis. That might mean that you start having difficulties trying to let go of the supply. Common as well with DC, that one. Alright, so you can't let go of essentially the supply. Then you move on to severe shock. Then breathing and upset, laboured breathing. Getting towards just under 100 milliamp, you start getting extreme breathing difficulties and your heart starts getting affected. Between 100 and 200 milliamps, you see that word there? Well, it means that you can't be brought back. Even with defibrillation, you might not be able to be recovered. That's assuming that emergency technicians could get to you or CPR was initiated quick enough. But even then, I'm afraid, between the 100 and 200 milliamps, it does some really interesting things to the heart, which we'll have a look at in just a moment. But yeah, defibrillation probably won't work at that point, meaning you'll be expired. Much beyond the 200 milliamp, what happens is the heart clamps shut entirely, but funny enough though, you can survive it. You can, providing that around this threshold it hasn't done any physical damage to your heart. Severe burns as well, and your breathing also will stop. If it hasn't stopped at that point, it will have by then. And that's what's interesting about it. Where it mentions the severe burns, that can be both internal and external. And if any of those burns happen to involve vital organs, well, then you're dead. If it burns the lungs or physically destroys the heart, which it could well do, especially given the fact that AC current can quite easily get into the body anyway. Right? It'll pass through skin a lot easier, which is why most often it will require less overall current and voltage to do some serious damage. But not always. Again, that's always going to come down to your overall factors as well, like how wet your skin is, how dry it is maybe, how good a connection to earth you have. However, yeah, not good. All right. So that's kind of where we're at here, and that's pretty much where we're at. So, what does it actually do to the heart, though, to kill you? Well, I've got another board, and let me just pause this, and I'll get it, and I'll try and show you. So I'm back with another board. And I might have to get my tablet in a moment as well. This is basically your heart's cardiac cycle. Alright, so that's basically in between each, well, one complete heartbeat cycle. Right. The ventricular problems that you get, now do bearing in mind you can also, you can go into what's known as AFib, which can then progress to ventricular fibrillation at a later. This is also what makes that kind of dangerous, because you might receive a shock and think nothing of it, but it knocks out your heart rhythm, right? And it will cause disturbances between Q, R and S waves as well. So these become elongated, right? Those waves become elongated, causing an arrhythmia. If it doesn't stop the heart outright and doesn't put you into ventricular fibrillation straight away, as we said, you get the arrhythmia first, and you might not necessarily think it's dangerous. Then the heart starts fluttering and going erratically, and then before you know it, you end up unconscious from it. It's interesting because I've heard of a story about that, where a guy got an electric shock. Can't remember what the overall circumstances were, but he obviously got quite a severe shock. And to calm his nerves down from it, he went to sit down and have a cigarette. So the story went, is when he sat down and lit the cigarette, he then died. So he must have gone into, at that point, a serious arrhythmia. Then, obviously, the heart would have gone into ventricular fibrillation, leading to asystole, complete asystole. That's flatline. That's it. No more heart activity. What happened was, is somebody had found him. It was another work colleague, I do believe, who tapped him on the shoulder or something. He didn't respond. Shook him, still didn't respond, and the cigarette was burning down. So his consciousness had already gone bye-bye at that point. But you can see here what usually happens if you start interfering with the ventricular functions rather of the heart. its pressure will drop because you haven't got a sinus rhythm there. Now when that happens and you enter that erratic phase there, you'll notice that your aortic pressure will drop. The aorta is obviously the largest blood vessel in the human body. It's the largest artery, which is on top of the heart, and it's responsible for pushing blood to essentially your arms, legs and the head. So when that pressure drops, that's why suddenly you lose consciousness. The heart stops, you stop breathing because there's no supply going through. You lose consciousness, and as a result, the signals then can't carry on from the brain back to the heart, causing asystole, meaning flatline, meaning you're dead. That's basically that. And it can come on suddenly, or it can come on gradually from AFib. Elongated waves here will basically cause that. Now, as I said, between the 100 and 200 milliamp range anyway, you're not going to bother with the whole arrhythmia thing. It'll affect your heart that much, or possibly stop it outright. The interesting thing is with defibrillation, defibs only really work as long as there's some sort of rhythm there. Right? That's still potentially shockable, at least to this point. Further on there, it's not. No matter how much you try to defib it, it won't bring you back. So essentially you die. At that point, you're also going to be needing chest compressions, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. But it might already be too late for that. It may well be, and that's assuming that CPR and AEDs can be brought into the equation quick enough, which is highly unlikely. So that's pretty much, from a physiological standpoint, how it does kill you. And you'll see that even minor fluctuations here will start affecting aortic pressure, your atrial pressure, and your ventricular volume. As I said, you start throwing this out of sync, then the volume through the ventricles decreases, meaning the blood can't be pushed up, essentially ending life. That's pretty much how it kind of runs. So anyway, we've simulated a decent phone call now. What we want to do now is get our other board back. I'll just swap the other boards over. We'll fetch our offending screwdriver out, and then we'll take some readings of that and see how far into that danger zone we get. How does that sound? Still, I wouldn't even bother having these. Another day, I might even do an experiment with it, possibly, over on my workbench. For that, I'm going to need a suitable moniker, suitable representation of a finger. Well, a packet of sausages will do that. It could simulate a finger, or, use your imagination, it could be something else. Oh, that would be painful, wouldn't it? But that's a story for another day. So, what I'll do is just pause this and we'll fetch the other board back and get our offending item out of the water. Okay, so we're back. We have our meter. We have our back of the envelope calculations with our first value of 237 volts alternating current. As we see here, obviously, we're aiming to prove just how dangerous this is. We're aiming for around somewhere in the 200 milliamp ballpark area to, well, anywhere from around 50 milliamps to around 200 milliamp, but even still, as little as 10 to 20 milliamp can still be fatal. So what we're going to do, I'll try not to have that board over as well, because that won't be good. Right, so what we've got is I've a multimeter here, and we have our box of dishwater. So, okay, alright, we've simulated a fairly substantial phone call, so let's see what we get. I also have a tablet here, by the way, for calculations. Oops, there's our... Oh yeah, straight away, that's actually got loads in there. Yes, that's filled up with water substantially. That's terrible. Right, okay, let's dry that off on the outside. And I think we can get rid of that. I don't think we need this for a minute, so we'll just put that over there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly dry the outside of this. Just on my sleeve. It's clean water in there anyway. It's just dishwater, essentially, with well, tap water and a tiny bit of salt, so not much. And straight away, you can actually see that's filled with water completely. So imagine that you didn't realise that, and then you went to put that in the mains. And that's now filled with water. And you happen to be grounded. How serious and how much dying are you going to do? I think we can answer this. So what we'll do is just move our camera down a little. What we'll need to do is, just for ease, I'm going to clamp a crocodile clip on there. Just so I can get an easier reading. Now we're going to take our multimeter and we're going to do two tests. One is for continuity, to see if we can actually get 0 ohms across it, which would allow full current flow. And if it did, well, off of a 13 amp supply, that would be horrendous. Even at 10 amps, 237 volts would be, well, yeah, that would not be good. It potentially would allow 23 amps, wouldn't it? But of course, our supply was limited to 13 amps, so it would trip the breaker. But the problem is with that is it might well affect the heart still in between cycles and still putting you into fibrillation. But we'll see. There's no point speculating. Let's just get this put in there. So that's our first lead connected to our screwdriver. First of all, do we have continuity? Let's see. No, it doesn't look like we do, so there's no continuity across it. Doesn't mean to say that it's safe. Well, it's definitely not. The whole darn thing is filled with water. I don't know if that's going to stay upright. Probably not, which is not cool. Let's try and prop the meter up. No continuity across that whatsoever. Fine. Let's have a look at our resistance now. Just reconnect that. Let's see what we get. On the cap, that's incredible. Is that really? Okay. Well, it's 14 megaohms there, but what about on the... Ooh, that's incredible. No way. Touching that near here, so if you were to hold that by that clip, the looks of that is about, I'm getting some weird readings, it's probably between 1 and 16k. That is potentially very bad. In fact, I want to double check that again. That can't be right. Let's double check that again. That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Let me just put that in there. So that is incredible. That is absolutely incredible. It's coming in at about 1.5k. Depending on where you're touching that, that's between 1.5 and 15k. Right, okay. What we're going to do, I just need to get these caps back on here. But now we've got some figures to work with. So, I need to get my pen. Bear with me. One moment. Okay, so we're back. I've got a pen. I've started to prepare some of the calculations. So, about 15,000 ohms is what sort of comes out the cap. For some reason, there's a lesser resistance on the sort of grip holder there for a pocket. So, but then again, you'd be inclined to touch that there anyway. Yeah, just about anywhere there. So there's actually a lower resistance on sort of that pocket holder thing there. But as you can see, though, that's still all filled up. So how serious is this then? How badly would you die from it? Or, you know, how bad would it be? Well, 237 volts is what we now know is our supply. So we're going to do two calculations here. One for 1,500 ohms and one for 15,000 ohms. Now in this case, we need to find out the current. So this, well, I would equal voltage divided by the resistance. So we're going to say 237 volts, divide that by 1,500. Oh dear! Gives us 0.158 amps, which, at that, 0.158 amps equals 158 milliamps, putting us, if it's 158 milliamps, means, I'm sorry, but you've just died. That's guaranteed death. That is absolutely guaranteed dead. There you are. The maths all tie up. If indeed you did drop that into a bowl of water, like we have there, and that fills up, and then you touch that into a supply, and you're earthed, you are dead. No questions about it. Resuscitation won't work. asystolic, you're dead. 237 volts is the supply. 1,500 ohms was the resistance across that in a worst case scenario. The current on that, as we said, I equals V divided by R. The current equals voltage divided by the resistance. We'll put that as 0.158 amps, which is 237 divided by the 1500, gives you 158 milliamps. Anywhere between 100 and 200 is guaranteed dead. Sorry, but you've died on that. Now, do you die again? Right, okay. So, we now need to look at 15k. So, well, we would just be essentially 1,500. We would be adding another naught to that. So, at that point, it probably would be around 0.0158 amps. Equals around... Let's just work that out, what that would be. But I'm assuming that's going to be around the sort of 15 milliamp region, which is still going to kill you across the heart. 15 milliamps certainly still will kill you. It will put you into the bracket there of breathing difficulties, breathing upset and laboured, much like what happened to our friend who then went into atricular fibrillation, or atrial, he went AFib, ended up with a dangerous arrhythmia, sat down, had a cigarette, and then died. Because the AFib condition led to ventricular fibrillation, therefore stopping the heart and killing him. So indeed, you would die twice over. Absolutely, completely. Let's confirm it. 237. And we're going to divide that by 15,000. It's 0.0158 amps. Yeah, it's dead. 15 milliamp. It's dead. Seriously. If you've got one of those devices, if you've got one of these, bin it. It'll kill you. Alright? We've done the workings out, we've done the experiment. That will kill you, mate. Look at that, filled with water. And you'll be inclined to put that in mains. Yeah, that'll kill you. Completely. Look at it, it's all filled up. Look at that. That's incredible. That is nasty. I don't use these things anyway, but I'm going to keep hold of that because I want to do some experiments with that at some point. That is dangerous though, that, isn't it? Look at that. Look at all the water in it. Well and truly within that category. The maths speak for itself, and you would indeed end up pretty sad. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Right, anyway, people, I'm out of here. Stay good. Catch you later. And seriously, if you've got one of these, bin them. Well, I didn't get rid of it enough, but you get rid of it. Right, I'm off now because I need to go and empty this away. And then I want to have a beer and relax. So I have been yours truly, Totally Amazing. Thank you ever so much for watching my videos. Like, comment and subscribe as always. And I hope to see you next time. If you've got one of these and you're playing around with it, I might not. Get rid of it. See you soon. Bye.